Alright, welcome on another video on how to create an e-commerce with Vue, Nuxt, Strapi, GraphQL, Docker, Stripe, and deploy on a Amazon EC2 or on a serverless. So the whole idea of this is to know that yes, how feasible, maintainable, and scalable it is to build an e-commerce with all of this technology. Okay, and the way of doing that, or the methodology, is the design. So first, identify what are the components that you need before doing that. Okay, and that is by conducting a research of the UI component library that you need to use, as well as other plugins necessary to integrate to your app. Okay, so first is the templates that you need to have, or these UI component library. In our case, I'm going to choose is view stick for that purpose. And if I want to manage our content much more easy, I'm going to rely on a package or on a plugin called Strapi from Nuxt 3. And to integrate payment options in our application, use the card integration from Stripe, this business to business payment solution. Okay, so the time estimating of that is less than 24 hours. Let's see how that goes. And the second step on this methodology is the build process, is to actually build that. So first I begin with the backend, and then I set up Strapi, okay, which after all, it was originally designed to help you bootstrap your API, but now it grew into an entire open source headless CMS that allows developers to choose whatever favorite tools they want to and frameworks, while editors can easily manage and distribute their content through the admin panel. And because Strapi is a plugin based system, you can easily extend functionality for the API as well as the admin panel. And also, it comes with a built in user system uh, to manage in detail what admins and end users have access to. Okay, so first I set up Strapi and also define is the most common data structure for any e-commerce, and that is product, order items, review on the admin dashboard. So in there I define all of these models, and then I populate that data, which after all it was time consuming, and then see how you can integrate GraphQL with Strapi. Luckily for us, we have already a plugin that allows to do that. And the funny thing of this is, or the great thing of this, is that now we don't need to set up a GraphQL server from scratch, uh, or an Apollo server. It already comes with an Apollo server built in. And well, Apollo, after all, this is a new way of how do we interact front-end and back-end application. It follows the GraphQL specs, and it acts as a data layer between your modern web applications and the cloud, right? So it provides a couple features like the client as well as the server and some advanced features. But most of the time, we're going to use is the client and the server. So here it provides the Apollo server underneath the hood on this plugin as the shadow crew, something that they define, which is an automation tool that generate types, queries, mutations, and resolvers that you define on the admin panels. Based on the model you define on the admin panel, it will generate all of that, as well as the crew operation. So that's actually something great because we don't need to do that on foot. And then I look at the front end. And to understand why we choose, or why I choose Nuxt, since Nuxt is this new way to building web mother applications that improves the developer experience, which is one of the reasons why I choose to do that. The goal of Nuxt, according to their website, is delivering an optimized user experience using several optimization techniques like code splitting, tree shaking, link prefetching, among others, several rendering strategies, so to render content on the server, the SSR, or on the client-side rendering, static site generators, incremental static regenerations, among other strategies. As the CEO, the SEO, all right, the search engine optimization, and the Web Vitals. And yesterday, I dedicated quite a amount of time to understand this, okay? Which, after all, is a set of metrics that represents different facets or stage, okay? So the Web Vitals are a set of metrics that represent different facets of the user experience, is measurable in the field, meaning on real life, on the real life, and or meaning on production, okay? A set of metrics that represent different facets of the user experience is measurable in the field, in other words, in production, and it reflects the real world experience. So the current set, which it will evolve over time, for 2020 will focus on three main aspects: the loading, the large contentful paint, interactivity, the first input delayed, and visual stability, the accumulated layout shift. So to ensure that we're hitting the recommended target of most of your users, a good threshold to measure is the 75 percentile of page load. Let me see, how do you define cardinal numbers? Google Translate. Yeah, how do you say that?
75th.
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 Oh, that might be okay. So 75th. 75th. Really? How do you pronounce that? 75th. Okay, 75th. Really? This is how you pronounce that? How to pronounce? Really?
We are looking at how to pronounce this word. What is the correct pronunciation for it? How do you say it? 75th, 75th, or in American English, 75th, 75th.
75th. Okay. Okay, there is a current video of how to pronounce that. Okay, that's interesting. So 75th. Okay, 75th percentile of page load, segment across. Okay, so to ensure we're hitting the recommended target for most of your users when it comes to loading, interactivity, and visual stability, a good threshold to measure is 75th percentile of page load segmented across mobile and desktop device. Okay, so tools to use for in the field data, page speed insights, and lab data lighthouse. So the things to know with this Web Vitals, okay, according to the Google developers on that, is this is a set of metrics that represent different facets of the user experience, is measurable. Okay, so this is a set of metrics that represent different facets of user experience, is measurable, so it's measurable in the field and reflect the real world experience. So this different facet or the current set of uh, the current set that will evolve over time for 2020 according to their website, to focus on three aspects of the user experience, or three facets of user experience: the loading, the large contentful pane loading, interactivity, first input delay, and visual stability, cumulative layout shift. So to ensure that we're hitting is the recommended target for most of your users, a good threshold to measure is a 75 percenting of page load. Okay. Again, this is the recommended. Uh, this is the recommended target to ensure that we're hitting. Uh, okay, so to ensure that we're hitting the recommended target for most of our users, a good threshold to measure is the 77 seven five seven seven five seven seven fifth seven fifth percentile, exactly, is to measure the 7/5 percentile of page load segment across mobile desktop devices. And the tools we use for the field data is Page Insight, among others, and lab data is Lighthouse. So, okay, again, this is one of the goals of Nuxt, okay, when it comes to delivering an optimized user experience, providing a set of optimization techniques like coding, different optimization techniques like code splitting, tree shaking, optimized cold start, link prefetching, rendering a strategy, server side, client side, static site generators, incremental static regenerations, among others, SEO, search engine optimizations, and Web Vital, a set of uh, a set of metrics that represent different facets of the user experience, is measurable in the field, and it reflects the real world experience. And the current set of Web Vitals, or this current set of metrics, which will evolve in time, for 2020, focus on three main aspects: loading phase, the large contentful paint, interactivity, first input delay, and visual stability. So cumulated layout shift. And to ensure that we're hitting is the recommended target for most of our users, a good threshold to measure is 75th percentile of page load segment across mobile and desktop. Okay, so we have several tools to use in the field, meaning on production, like page speed insights, or in lab data, and like Lighthouse. And then when it comes to the developer experience, to improve the developer experience, well, we have is plug and play, which is very intuitive folder structure directory, automation for auto imports, typings, minifications, bundling for productions, and battery includes like data fetching, state management, meta tag helpers for SEO, route guards, cookies, error handlings, and bundle analyzer, and more. And a community of web builders. Okay, okay. And then a community of web builders. Okay, okay, okay. Then I look at the introduction of this. So after all, Nuxt allows you to create type safe, performant, and production grade full stacks websites and web app with Vue while enjoying the hot model replacement in development and a performing application or a performing production server side rendering by default. So Nuxt has no vendor lock-in, allow you to deploy your application anywhere, even to the edge. So, uh, because this is the introduction, I look at the features that it comes with, like the automation and conventions, like files-based routing, code splitting, server-side rendering by default, auto imports, data fetching utility, zero config TypeScript support, and configure build tools. Okay, this is 7 things that Nuxt provide uh, as part of that's what 7 automations and conventions features. Again, this is part of to improve the developer experience. So several automation and conventions for that. Okay. Automation and conventions. Mhm. Okay, so this is part of the features that Nuxt provide. This automation and conventions like files-based routing, code splitting, server side out of the box, auto imports, data fetching utilities, zero config TypeScript support, and configure build tools. Okay, and configure build tools. So for the first files-based routing, well, Nuxt provide a way an automated way to generate routes defining under the page directory. Code splitting, actually Nuxt automatically split your code in smaller chunks, which can help you to reduce initial load time of your application. Okay, server side rendering out of the box. Mhm. Server side rendering out of the box. Okay. Yeah, server-side rendering out of the box. The Nuxt comes with built-in server-side rendering capability, so you don't have to set up a separate server yourself. Auto imports, so view composables and components in their respective directory and use them without having to import them with the benefit of tree shaking and optimized JavaScript bundle. Data fetching utilities. So Nuxt provide composables to handle server-side compatible data fetching. as well as different strategy. So data fetching utilities is to, well, for fetching data with different rendering strategies. Zero config TypeScript support and configure build tools. Then I look at the server-side rendering, which is another aspect of Vue that Nuxt provide, which is faster initial page load time since the content is already in there. So the server render, sorry, so Nuxt sends a fully rendering HTML to the browser. So the content is in there, meaning it improves the SEO because search engine can now index your web page because the content is in there, while also improving the accessibility. Since the content is in there, people that rely on screen reader device and other assistant technologies is beneficial. Better performance on low power device because it reduces the amount of JavaScript that the browser needs to download, parser on the client, uh, and it's easy to catch because page can now catch on the server side, and you can decide which catching method you want to use. Okay, whether it's catch your entire website or an hybrid approach. All right, server side rendering, which is faster initial page load time, improved SEO, better performance on low power device, better accessibility, easy to catch. Uh, and then I look at the server engine here. So the Nuxt Server Engine Nitro unlocks new full stack capabilities. Mhm. Okay. So the Nuxt Server Engine Nitro unlocks new full stack capabilities, right, with the server engine. So that's Nuxt. Okay, so that's Nuxt Server Engine Nitro and unlocks new full stack capability. So after all, when you talk about an engine, this is the heart of the application that it provides a set of capabilities to do one specific task. In this case, to be a server. So this Nitro in development use rollup and Node.js workers, all right? So it improves the server code and context isolations. It also generates your server API by reading files in the server API and the server middleware from server middleware. Okay, so it also generates your server API by reading files in the server API and middlewares in the server middleware. And after all, middleware is just a software concept that is a function that executes between two functions, between 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 one. Yeah, it's a function that executes in the middle, okay, between one operation and another. So for example, in the request and in response, a middleware is a function that will execute once it receives the incoming request or the response coming out of the server. Okay, okay, cool. And in production, Nitro builds your app and server into one universal .output directory. Okay? So this output is slide, minify, and remove from any Node.js model except polyfill. You can deploy this output on any system supporting JavaScript from Node.js, serverless, workers, edge-side rendering, or purely static. Mhm. Okay. Okay, so in development, it uses rollup and Node.js worker, and it also to seize or to harness the power of your multiple CPU cores. Uh, and it also generates your server APIs by reading files in the server slash API and server middleware from server slash middleware, right? And in production, Nitro builds your app and server into one universal output directory. This output is slide, minify, and remove from any Node.js model except polyfill. You can deploy this output on any system supporting JavaScript for Node.js, serverless, worker, edge size, rendering, and purely static. Again, in production, Nitro output or Nitro builds your app into a .output directory, and this output is slide, minify, and remove from any Node.js model except polyfills, and you can deploy this output on any system supporting JavaScript, whether it's Node, serverless, workers, edge side caching, or purely static. Okay, so Node, server, worker, edge caching, or edge side rendering, or purely static. Okay, and then I look at the production rate, right? So a Nuxt application can be deployed on a Node, vNode, pre-rendered to be hosted in static environments, or deployed to a serverless and edge provider. It is modular, okay? So we can extend Nuxt features and integrate with third-party service. And then I look at the architecture here, okay? Then I look a closer look at the architecture. So Nuxt is composed of different core packages. Okay. So Nuxt is composed of different core packages. So the core engine, in this case, allows Nuxt to provide an optimized user experience, improve the developer experience. That's one of the reasons they have here at the core. Okay. And all of the things that we already mentioned before. Uh, so when it comes to delivering an optimized performing experience, is providing a several optimization techniques like code splitting, tree shaking, lean prefetching, several rendering strategy, server side rendering, client side rendering, static side generators, incremental static regenerations, among others, SEO, search engine optimization, and Web Vitals, a set of metrics that represent the different facets of user experience, is measurable in real, no, is measurable uh, in the field and provides real life experience of your app. And right now, this set of metrics, which in 2020, uh, it will evolve over time, it measures three aspects of user experience: loading, with the largest contentful pane, interactivity, the first input delay, and visual stability, with the cumulative layout. Uh, yeah, with the cumulative layout. Who? Yeah, the cumulative layout. Uh, cumulative cumulative layout shift. So to ensure that we're hitting the recommended target for most of our users, a threshold to use is 75th percentile across different uh, Yeah, 75. Okay. So a good threshold to measure is a 77. Yeah, a good threshold to measure is the 75th 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 percentile of page load segmenting across mobile and desktops device. And also the improves the developer experience with a plug and play folder structures, automations, and conventions uh, like tree shaking, minification, uh, code splitting, bundling for productions, and battery included, like data fetching, state management, meta tags helpers, cookie error handling, bundle analyzers, route guards, and more. So this is the core of Nuxt, right? This is actually what it does, what it does this engine. And to understand that, it's like, okay, good. Now I know what I can provide to customers, what I can provide to clients. And then we have the bundles, the bundlers here. So Nuxt Bix, so Nuxt Byte Builder, and so for the Vite or the Webpack, the command line interface, so we can easily generate uh, Nuxt components, server engine with Nitro. Okay, again, something that I already mentioned. What are the main benefits of that? Especially on development, which it use rollup and Node.js worker. And in production, it so Nitro builds and optimize. Uh, well, yeah, so Nitro builds your app. So Nitro builds your app and server into one universal .output directory. This is important to understand. So Nuxt builds your app and the server, which allows you to do server-side rendering by default. Okay, so you don't have to worry about setting a server from scratch. Okay, so in production, Nuxt builds your app and a server into one universal .output directory, and this output is light, minify, and remove with any Node.js model except the polyfill, so you can deploy this on any system supporting JavaScript, whether it's Node, Dino, serverless, workers, edge catching, or edge side rendering, or purely static with the server engine. And then look at the development kit. Again, to provide a couple tools to create Nuxt model to enhance that. And then you got Nuxt to bridge, right? And something that they mention is that we recommend reading each concept to have a full vision of the Nuxt capability and the scope of each package. All right, and the scope of each package. So with that understanding, that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye bye.